morning, everybody, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied voice, Justin. How is everybody today? Also non-squeaking Kiwi dog, because she just settled down right before I hit the button, so no squeaks for you guys today. Happy Monday. Let me see, I'm going to move chat over just a tad so I can see y'all without interrupting the screen. Make sure everything is nicely arranged. We will hope that our stream is happy today. Hey, Val, thanks for the resub. Yay! Yay! Is it Canadian Thanksgiving and Columbus Day or whatever the heck it is? Yes. In our, we have no idea. Like, I went and did a stream on Friday afternoon here, Friday evening, to just kind of see. Actually, no, it would have been Friday. Friday afternoon. But essentially a half hour after we ended so disastrously. And on my personal channel at that time, David and I were running speed tests, and it was buffering a little, but it was okay. So we haven't touched it since then. So we'll see. We'll hope that it was some technician messing with the line with the construction over at City Hall. There's a lot of construction going on over there in that area. So they're taking advantage of the low foot traffic to break up sidewalks and do all sorts of stuff. So we could make Hikma a Sphinx. You are correct, Grim. Yeah, totally could do that. And considering the Middle Eastern flavor of some of our southern, at least that might be the way she appears in Karshan to the Sultanate. It's a good idea. Good idea. We'll see. We'll have to run that by the stream on Thursday. All right. So yeah, we decided we would do something. And Relowitch, good morning. I haven't seen you before. If you're new, welcome. So yeah. I like Sphinxes. So they're one of my favorite monsters. So yes. And this one, of course, we've been thinking about for a while. Ms. Kiri is so far looking happy. There's about a 60% chance of Kiri emergency today. The usual. This is the usual chance. It depends how good she's feeling. So I sticky tack the wings. I'm going to regret that now. I'm going to need to take a big piece of sticky tack and take the sticky tack out of the wing sockets. This is the way you can get your sticky tack out of your wing sockets. I also haven't glued her down, which I probably should. But anyway, so we're going to do Miss Sphinx. And while I'm doing this, while I'm taking this gooey crap out of these wing sockets, what I want to ask you guys is, what are we going to do with this? So I have two ideas. One is to go very, very dark-skinned, very Nubian, very blue-black with her on the skin, but make the fur and feathers lighter. And the other one is to invert that color scheme and make her more golden-skinned, but go really dark with her fur and feathers. What do you guys think of that? Like, which one would you rather see? Because, we could go either way. Oh.
By the way, Miss Anne.
Yeah.
I wanted to let you know, too, that as of right now, your day one class from ReaperCon is up on YouTube.
Oh,
yay! So it's still processing. So whenever YouTube decides the hours upon hours upon hours of footage that I've uploaded, they've decided that it's okay to go, they'll push it through. So
it looks like most people are saying dark skin and light fur. Yeah, okay, that's cool. We can do that. Oh, good. That's nice. That's nice, Val. Thanks. Yeah, totally. Thanks for spreading the word. So, all right, cool. So y'all heard that. That's going to be my paint thinning class, which is very timely, Justin, because I'm about to probably do a brush loading and unloading little video for my Patreon, either this month or next month. I'm kind of deciding. I've got two possible $2 videos. So those will all pair very nicely together. So that is great. Once it goes up, let me know, and I'll go over and look at Reaper YouTube and get the link for that video so that I can throw it into a Patreon post.
No problem. If
your sticky tack is really annoying, guys, you can use a pokey tool to get it out. Pokey tools, see, they're a multi-use tool. This is not a unitasking tool. Alrighty. Cool, excellent. I just want to clear out our wing. Okay, that one's good, because this one is deep enough that the wing actually sits in it very nicely. So, for those who are to forestall the inevitable questions, I do not attach and then paint. With wings, I always paint and then attach. Even if it means doing a little bit of putty work after it's painted and then painting over that putty work. It's really not a big deal to do that. And so I would much rather be able to paint the wings comfortably and to do a good job on them, as opposed to, you know, having to try to paint all of these little feather details after the wing is already on the model, which is far more of the pain in the butt, especially when you've got two wings on there. That makes this makes this model so much more cumbersome to hold and to paint, to have both wings attached. So for me, I always find it much better to paint when to not attach the wings at first. It's just so much easier. Thank you, Twisted Oma, for the resub. Excellent. Yeah, and I also have had her I've wanted to paint her since I first saw her. And I like the base. I think that Julie and Bob do good stonework, and I see a lot of cracks in here. And so if you don't want to do a lot of conversion work, that's good that you did it, Jelly. But if you don't want to do a lot of conversion work, but you want it to make it look older, this is actually very easy to paint cracks and other effects in, and we're going to do that. So we'll essentially paint it, because you could paint it fairly fresh, or you could paint it, you know, and really emphasize cracks and add cracks and crumbly effects. But you could do it all with paint. You don't actually need to convert it. So it's up to you which way you want to go. A lot of people really love to do that sort of putty work and basing work, and it's fantastic practice for if you want to do a diorama time thing like that. Thank you, Robin. Thank you for the tier 1 sub 10. Yeah, 2 more months for your anniversary. Then you should buy a pumpkin spice latte to celebrate. Or something.
This stream brought to you by...
Oh, people have been telling you that you're crazy for painting and doing putty work, for painting first and doing putty work for wings. No, you're not. You're going to get far better effects. You're going to get far better paint jobs, Liquid Nebula, in my opinion. Unless you have some crazy control, or you're just like kind of blocking in the wings. But seriously, if this wing is already attached, trying to get in there and kind of paint little details on these wings or do a really good job on them, how are you going to do that? This whole thing gets in your way, right? Whereas if you have the wing, you can just hold it and you can paint, you know, as fiddly as you want, and it's not a big deal, right? I mean, I don't know why people freak out about doing putty over paintwork. It's not a big deal. And if you really feel like maybe the adhesion is going to be bad because your putty is going over paint instead of metal, use your little X-Acto knife or file and scrape away a little bit of the paint around where you're going to do the putty. Ta-da! Easy. So yeah, exactly. Now you want pumpkin spice. Sorry, Rella. I was thinking the other, it's totally off my diet to have a pumpkin spice latte, but I want one, so I have to. David said I have to do something good for it, so I have to.
Speaking of which, Miss
yes,
Ann, I had a nitro cold brew from Starbucks this weekend.
Yeah?
With pumpkin cream.
Oh wow!
It was very tasty and worth it.
Nitro cold brew with pumpkin cream from Starbucks. Oh wow, that sounds really decadent, Justin.
Oh, it is, and it is unbelievably full of caffeine. Like, it is a cold brew, but it's like their nitro cold brew, so it's probably the closest thing to actual cocaine you're ever gonna get.
I think, guys.
Legally, that is.
Yeah, legally. I was gonna say, let's not push drugs too strongly on our stream.
Let's try not to.
Yeah, I don't drink coffee anymore either, Rella, but unfortunately Sprouts did not. I haven't seen Sprouts putting out a pumpkin spice. They used to have a pumpkin spice black tea at Sprouts, which was my stand-in for pumpkin spice latte. But yeah, like if I have a pumpkin spice latte, it will be like the only one this year. They're really not on diet for me. Okay, so guys, I think I was going to think about gluing her in, but again, if I glue her in, then I do have a good thing to hold her by with this, but I will also want to just be able to paint this without having to worry about her. So I think what I'm going to do is, she sits in there really nice, and she doesn't generally fall out as long as you're working at a reasonable angle. So I think I'm just going to leave her not glued in at this point, so that if I do want to pull her out and just concentrate on the base, I can swap her in and out then at will. I kind of like having that freedom as I work. I just really like it. Even now, like coffee and pumpkin pie separately. Well, okay. How about the peppermint latte for Christmas then, Inara? Are you in favor of those? I do like those. I like peppermint tea and peppermint lattes for the holidays. Coffee really like does a number on me, so I can maybe have coffee like once every 2 or 3 months. But yeah, see, there you go. I knew if you weren't a pumpkin spicer, you were probably into peppermint. That seems to be like those two diametrically opposed flavor combos. There you go. Oh, peppermint latte. Yeah, now everybody wants winter, right? Everybody wants the holidays. Hey, happy holidays, guys. It's getting there, right? It's almost Halloween. Isn't that insane? Like, I'm totally thrown by the weather of my new home. Like, California still thinks it's like summer in Wisconsin. Like, I wonder if California just reaches out and just kind of snags weather from other states when they're favorable, when it's favorable. Oh, so yeah, the fact that it's going to be 80 in the 80s this week, and it's going to be like maybe 90 or high 80s on the weekend is like, I'm like, what are you doing, California? Like, it's like almost NaNoWriMo. It's supposed to be horribly weathered in November, so I could sit and write for a month. And what are you doing here? Like, with my luck, it's going to be beautiful in 70s all November, and I totally won't get in the mood to write because I depend on those environmental cues. You know what I did, though? I forgot my palette. David, I don't suppose I could beg you to go and get a palette. It's in the drainer. Thank you, my love. That way I can still talk to people about planning. All right, so we're going to go dark with skin and light with feathers. So I want ebony flesh then. So I've got to search around for my ebony flesh. I could mix it, but I don't really want to. And thank you, my love. I have the best boyfriend ever, just so you all know.
By the way, Miss Ann.
Yes?
Speaking of hot temperatures, you'll get a kick out of this.
Yeah?
Yesterday, Michaela and I clocked the max temperature in Fort Worth here at like 94 degrees.
Oh my gosh. 94,
It was
huh?
very hot yesterday.
Wow.
It felt like a July afternoon.
So then it looks like all of us are getting a little bit of heat wave this week. All right, I found my ebony flesh. So guys, here's our two bones flesh colors. They are meant to work together. I may throw a little bit of reddish tone in between them. That often will work weirdly. This is a weird, you guys don't realize it, but this is almost like the bright skin triad where there are several colors, and they're different, but you're all layering them. The bright skin triad was pink, orange, yellow. This is actually blue, red, yellow. There's a lot of blue in ebony flesh. It's what makes it, like, I really wanted that African skin tone where it is almost blue. Like, it almost looks blue. It's still dark brown, but it's like highlight bluish. So ebony flesh is my color for that. The ruddy flesh, which comes up, which is the next step up, is that beautiful kind of golden brown color that highlights up in the sun, really golden, that African people have, that I adore. It's like a beautiful skin color. Like, if I could have any skin color, I just love that one. And so it's kind of light and dark African. And actually Reaper's gotten a lot of really good feedback on these colors from African American people and African people around the world, that they look realistic. So I feel really good about that. Yay. Just looking. My cat, if my cat was still alive, he could not bring me my palette, Rella. I have a dog, but she's very poor at fetching palettes also. I moved out here to be with this one, so it's good that there are rewards. Yes, there's many rewards for living with my current guy. All right, let's see here. So anyway, what does happen, and the reason that I say another color you could put in here is Mwangi brown, which is Pathfinder's African skin color, Pathfinder's dark skin, which is a great bridge color here. Hey, Shibi Dragon, I haven't met you before. Welcome. I'm Anne, if you're new. So anyway, so sometimes the thing is, when you have to be careful using ruddy over ebony, and you absolutely can. Like, you can just like do this and shade with this, or you can do this and highlight with this. But sometimes if you're trying to do mixes between these two, if you're not just layering, you can go a little green, because we got a lot of blue in here and we got a lot of yellow in here. So that's why I will often use a medium brown or a reddish color as a bridging color. And Mwangi is a nice warm medium brown skin tone. So it's a great bridger. I just don't have it like right here in front of me, so I may try to use a little bit of ruddy leather. You could also use like a russet brown as a bridging color. It would be a great bridge. Any of these, any and all, are great choices. So, but you can just use these. I just had limited slots, and so I was like, and I also didn't want to put out another color that I had already put out. So, all right, so we're going to start really dark. So we're going to base coat with the ebony. Very, very, very dark. And then what we'll have to do is we'll have to transition to her lion parts being lighter, but that's actually pretty easy, especially because we're planning to highlight with ruddy flesh, which, as you see, has a lot of yellow in it. So that's going to transition really well to going up to something like maybe polished leather plus a little bit of the blonde hair triad for that. By the way, I hope you all got your Reaper orders in for the paints that are going to be going out. I noticed one of the ones I wanted, I think it was 9073, which is another great lion color, by the way, lion fur color, is already out of stock. So apparently there was a run on 9073. I am an expensive habit scrying guy. Oh, okay, you usually lurk. Oh, great. Well, welcome. Glad to hear from you, Shibi. Now I'm gonna get it's like Shibi and Chibi, and I've got too many EBs. So you may become dragon. You may become dragon instead of Shibi. We'll see. But yeah. I just put in. Actually, you guys should be super excited because I just put in. It was a huge Reaper order for a whole bunch of newer sculpts that I never got to paint while I was working at Reaper, and so we have a ton of player character models headed my way to paint. Most of them women. Because Bobby Jackson's new female models in general are excellent. There are also a couple of more classic ones in there that I wanted to paint and didn't get around to. But a lot of Bobby Jackson sculpts because I really like his female characters these days. And then there's just some classic stuff. I think I looked at Pathfinder. I don't know that I ordered a Pathfinder this time. Had to. Yes, Jessember. Had to. It's definitely a need. It's a must. It's not an optional. Totally agree. So I'm just going to put, that's about 4 drops of ebony flesh in there, and there's 1 drop of water, water plus 1 improver, I guess. I just accidentally grabbed the wrong bottle. Usually I just use water. So it's about a 4-to-1, which is a good base coat. I think that I washed this model. It was a while ago, so I've slept since then. Not sure. I'm going to get a little closer here. Hold on, guys. Yeah, I got swamp green and peacock green, and I hope I got swamp green. I have to double check. Let's see here. Let's get closer. And let's get zoomy. Zoomy. She's so cute. She's such a cute little sphinxer. And she got such huge eyes. These are going to be fun. Oh, no, Reaper. Because I was mostly painting Grim, over the mostly making paint over the last, I would say 12 years or so. There are an awful lot of, I'm just going to paint over the whole thing, including the eyes, guys. There are an awful lot of models that are really good that Reaper put out that I either just never saw, or I saw and went, oh, I want to paint that one, and then just never had time. So, since I was looking for more and different models for the stream, because we finished Juliana, we're really close to finishing the Alicia, what's her name? Alesthea, or whatever her name is. Alasthea. That duelist chick. How about that? We're really close to finishing her. And we'll be done with Sneck the minute I figure out how I want to do the water. Once I have the mental energy to mess around with it. So we're finishing a lot. And so I want some fresh models that keep me excited and enable us to try different colors and color combos. This is the first time I've used ebony flesh on stream. But I do love it. It's so dark. It's lovely. Her face really disappears. And this is a problem, right? This is the problem with dark skin tones. Okay, and we're going to make her little ears dark too. Because even though that's cat parts, I think I want contrast. So we'll at least make the backs of them. And we'll line a bit. We'll at least make the backs of them dark though. And that's not unusual for a cat to have darker behind the ears or dark markings. Same with dogs and wolves. Wolves can be quite pale gray and still have that black rim and the black dark back on their ears. We've got some fur coming in here, so I'm just going to kind of block that in. Block in that outer edge. Don't want to get too... There. Now her little ears show up, and they're more to the point. They're going to look like they're coming out of her, coming up from her head. So if she got shaved, like, her ears would be huge. You know that? Like, somebody, my breed is looking at the Samoyed as an outcross, and somebody put up a picture of a Samoyed that had been shaved. And you know Samoyeds, when you look at them, they've got those tiny little triangle ears. It turns out that when you shave the dog, the ears are tremendously huge because the fur takes up so much room. Oh yeah, Robin. I think that cleaning them, some people paint straight onto them right out of the package, but I find that if I'm going to thin my paint, then I want to wash the model. So, I mean, if I have to paint on a bones right out of the package, I'll do it, but I'll use my paint full strength. I won't thin it. But I like to have a thinner base coat, and so instead I wash them in a little bit of dish soap and hot water, and then rinse them, let them dry overnight. So since this paint is sticking really well, even though I've thinned it, I'm going to guess that I did indeed actually wash this before I started putting paint on it. It's just been a while. Like, there are a lot of models. That's why I said I've been looking forward to painting this model for quite a while. So I prepped it ages ago, I guess, and then I forgot whether I'd prepped it. I thought I had, though, so far I'm going to say that I was right, just from the way that the paint is sticking. I used a knife to clean up the mold lines, so I've got a little bit of flecks of plastic here and there. Got to get those off. The only problem with using a knife to clean up the bones is sometimes you get a little bit of artifacts. Where's my knife? But files are even worse, so let me turn her around and get that little... I've just got a couple of little bits of plastic. There we go. Up, and a little bit of plastic right here, too. Trying to just get the little bits off. Oh, I have a little bit of sticky tack still left in there, but that's okay. There. Oh, as far as Val, then you're thinning your paint too well, or you're not shaking it well enough. And also keep in mind, this is a very high coverage color. The ebony flesh is actually built in a black base. So it's built in the same base that our pure black is built in. And then it has a lot of brown oxides and blue loaded into it. A ton of blue, actually. And it's the high solids blue, too. So essentially that black base, anything that you get from Reaper that's built in a black base that's really dark, like Nightmare Purple, all those things should cover this well if you throw like just a 4-to-1 ratio at it. If you are getting bad coverage, then you need to use thicker paint with those sorts of colors. Now, there are Reaper core colors that will take a couple of coats, but not this one. No, there really isn't. I mean, Grimm's got it. I mean, I always do 2, and even with this one, I'll probably do another one just to make sure it's real solid. When you're painting directly on bones, it certainly doesn't hurt to have another layer. I mean, people can debate all they want about whether you need to, to prime bones minis, but I'm going to stick to my guns on this one. I painted a zillion of the things, and I've never primed them. Ever. Yeah, but these black ones are such a nice... This is the color of my gray primer anyway, so... Full strength for bone space, yeah. Hold on. Yeah, and that's just the way that yellow and red pigment work, right? There's always going to be pigments that have less intrinsic coverage. It's all the pigment grind. And then you can modify that with chemistry by using different bases and different additives to play with the coverage. You can shift the coverage. But with every pigment, you start with a certain level of coverage. And you can only doctor it so far, which is why no company puts out a super high coverage. I mean, even Vallejo, which has very high coverage vinyl based or proprietary probably, but that acts like a vinyl base, very high coverage base. Even Vallejo's going to need two coats. Sorry guys, I missed a mold line. I just saw it on our biceps, so we need to take that off. So I'm using my X-Acto and kind of scraping and trying to keep my little threads of plastic out of here. Make sure I don't get a ton of them all around on the model. Now here's an area where I might normally use green stuff. There's a kind of a mold line. It's a little convex here, or concave, sorry. We'll see if I can get that off. You're always gonna run into areas where you think you got out all the mold lines and then you don't. Primed or not primed, bones or metal or resin. There will always be the last minute mold line. Yeah, and it's because those pigment grinds are so light. It's why people used cadmium for red, orange, and yellow pigments back in the day, guys. Which is most even traditional art companies are going away from that now because of the toxicity issue. But that's why cadmium, red, orange, and yellow are a thing. That's the entire reason, is because other red, yellow, and orange pigments did not cover well, and then people found out that cadmium, orange, red, and yellow did. So that is the reason those paints became popular. It's the big reason. Because when you come down to it, cadmium red is ugly. Like, it really is. It's an orangey, awful, tomatoey red that isn't really good for mixing, and it's a bit muted, but it covers like a demon. So, people used it because they love that. Now, cadmium, orange, and yellow are very pretty, but yeah, depends on the purple in question, Val. Yeah, this is true. Although, well, and even with other paint color companies at this rate, I was talking to David about this yesterday, is like, when you get to the point that I have where you spent 15 years mixing pigments together and, trying to match colors, and you got very good at it, I can look at other companies' paints and colors and tell you what pigments went into them, or real close at any rate. I got very, very good at matching colors just because I know what it looks like if I mix X pigment with Y pigment and add a little bit of Z pigment, right? I just know. So even when I'm working with other companies' colors, unless they're working with like the Scale 75 artist where they're working with colors, pigments that I'm not familiar with, then it gets a little harder. Like, if I tried to mix a comparable pigment, I could, but I probably couldn't get a match. Not a perfect one. But I'm very familiar with a certain set of pigments, and I'm very able to hazard a guess on mixing things. So we're going to just start out, and I'm going to kind of give remittance here, because I want to blend into these lion paws. I know that I see another mold line. See, now I've got a lot more ambient light in this room. I think that's the problem, is because I was cleaning off a few mold lines off of her last night, and now I just have enough light to see. I do think I'm going to go with dark under here, under this elbow, though, because this is going to be a shadow area anyway, so it makes sense to keep it dark. That way you won't have to worry about it. There. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, that's also true of jelly, is the light fastness. Although now there are all sorts of tricks with the modern organic pigments to make them a lot more light fast. So that's why I think you see a lot of traditional paint companies going non-cadmium cadmium. So they'll say cadmium red hue or cadmium yellow hue. That means they're using high solids or high density pigments like we actually used for our HD and bones lines. That means they're using that to get higher coverage. And it probably isn't quite still the perfect coverage of the cadmium, but it's close, right? People are willing to deal with it because they don't have to worry about toxicity. So yeah, as we base coat, we're gonna run into more areas where we maybe forgot a mold line, or I want it just a little cleaner because I want this model to look really good. This is a model that I do want to paint until the end, so whenever I have a model that I think I might finish, I'm gonna spend a little extra time on cleaning her up so that I don't run into a mold line or have to paint over a mold line at the end and get myself really grumpy about it. The average model that I used to demo on for this stream, I just kind of tossed out there and didn't care about mold lines. If you see a mold line on a model that I'm painting, it probably means I don't care about that model and don't want to finish it. And that I'm only using it because it's an easy model to demo a certain technique on. But lately I've been transitioning more to just choosing to paint models because we've covered a lot of the basics over the several years, couple of years we've been doing this show now. I've covered a lot of the basics, and so I figure you guys can always go back and look at those streams. I don't need to paint any other partial models. I can just choose models now based on things I'd really like to paint, and we can just see them through. Because a lot of you guys also said that you like that. You like to see the very beginning to the end. Which is cool. It's certainly more rewarding for me to finish things. I get in kind of a bad mind place if I've got a lot of projects that aren't done. It starts to feel a bit pressury. I do like to complete things. So, I've already done marble for my Patreon and stuff. I don't know if I'll do marble here. I really wanted to do kind of a cracked stone, a weathered, kind of stone effect. If I do a marble, it's going to be very lightweight and very subtle grim. This is not because, okay, here's the deal. When you use marble, when you use a dramatic marble effect is when you have stonework that has very little else going on with it so that it would otherwise be boring. That's when you go and do marble. When you have stone like this that has lovely detailing, you don't go marble because it's just distracting then. It's totally going to distract from all these lovely sculpted details. And you can, so if you want to use a textured marble effect, you need to make it super subtle. But Egypt, I mean, they used a lot of basalt and a lot of sandstone, a lot of granite, I think, and they weren't huge. It's not like Greece. I don't think that, they used limestone a lot of limestone, which looks, kind of glittery and pretty. That was their decorative stone. They weren't a huge marble statue, like, sculpting civilization like Greece. Yeah, I mean, this could be, like, kind of like the pyramids. Maybe this could be limestone. I'm not going to think too hard on what stone it is here. I mean, I have a lot of books. I at least have still one very, very good book on ancient Egypt. And I know that what color the stone in Egypt would be. So it's like, I'll probably use it. It's desert stone and desert sand, guys. Those are the colors based directly on pictures of Egyptian stones when I was researching it. I had those colors around for forever because I mixed them originally over a decade ago when I was painting Nephsakar, which is the Egyptian-y mummy army for Warlord. There we go. I think we've got all those mold lines. Oh, little claw has a tiny mold line on it. There we go. Helps if you, extra magnification helps on some of these too, guys. So you can really look at each area. This claw is really hard to get this mold line off of because it's a very tiny piece of the model. So it's kind of fragile and you definitely don't want to slice it off. So I kind of need to go in with my fingers and just kind of pull those little threads off and get them clear till I can see where I'm missing. There it is. So if I turn it over, I can see it. And I'm just like barely using the pressure like of my hand to use this knife. You don't want to gouge the model. You don't want to scar it. You just want to gently scrape away at some of the mold lines. So it can be very difficult to do something like this tiny little claw. Yeah, if you want redstone, go get it. Well, and red granite is pinkish. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of regular stone carving too. I mean, oh, what am I thinking of? The one with the giant Ramses statues. The Valley of the Kings. Karnak? But that's just, you know, a lot of the stone that you see is actually not reddish. Like, there's a lot of pictures of those areas. The best pictures are always where the sun is hitting it directly. And usually they're being taken in the afternoon, so it makes the stones look more red than they are. A lot of Egyptian stone is the color of desert stone. The color, the bones paint. Yeah, I'm just struggling a bit with this claw because I really want to get it sharp. But I don't want to hurt it. So I'm like, just trying to gently tighten it up. That might work right there. And if this wasn't an important little detail, I wouldn't spend so much time on it, but I feel that it is an important detail, so... There we go. That's good. I think that's good enough for now. I may go back in and try to touch it up a little bit, but I think that's going to be it. And I like these scalpel blades because I can go in and really get some fine work done. There we go. That looks a little better. Yeah. All right, that's good enough for now. I'm not going to obsess about it. Alrighty, let's see. Any other areas? Nope, that's all lion fur because you can see it. So this is all lion. Yeah, all lion here. So that's mostly where her dark parts are going to be. Yeah, it's why you got to go real gentle when you're doing fingers. Yeah, for sure. Oh, no, No, not at all, Pendrake. I'm not going redstone with this. No, I don't believe that redstone is real. The redstone try, guys, is for places like Oklahoma. Wherever you have a very iron-rich dirt that's really red. Egypt, though it had pink granite and some red sandstone, that's not the same red. Although there could be striations of that color in your sandstone. But Egypt in general is not so much that, is not that red. So we'll be going for a far more natural golden sandstone color, most likely for this. I may have to do a little research, but depends on what I want to do. But no, we are not talking about stream game. The only time we talked about stream game was when we said this might be like one of the faces of the goddess, goddess Hikmah, the goddess of wisdom, depending on who you're talking to. Unless it's the elves, where it's completely ambiguous. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I think I want a little bit more. Just when I put on a second coat, guys, of this, I usually thin the paint even more so that I don't ever have the chance of globbing up detail. My first base coat is going to be my thickest. Everything after that is really thin. And usually, once you've got a fairly solid base coat on, you don't need to go super thick for the second layer. You'll fill in just as much, you know, if you are seeing a little bit of the bones material or primer through it, you usually can touch it up with a much thinner paint than you think. So, yeah, I can do that too, Valandar. Just saying it, that for me, redstone really doesn't say Egypt. I made it because I used to take a lot of driving trips up to Oklahoma to help friends with puppy evaluations, and I love the really red clay they have there, really red earth. It looks like really unreal against really bright green grass in the spring. But I actually used that basing color for my orc army for 40k because it worked so well with the green skin and stuff. But it's not what I think of when I think of Egyptian stone, though. Alright, so we kind of got that. We want to put her, we want to put a bunch of dark skin kind of in the crannies and nooks down here. So like the back of her arm, see this dark strip? Since we don't want to really worry about painting the interior of this arm if you can't see it, we're just going to block that in with this nice dark skin color on one side of it. Because if you can't see it and you can't reach it, just block it in dark. Nobody is going to care. Yeah, it's more of a golden, usually, Valendar, you're right. And it does depend on the kind of stone, and there were many stones used, as people have said. So. Alrighty, I think we've got it set. And we don't even have to line, because really, ebony flesh is a dark enough color to be a liner. So, let's move her wings out of frame here. Her skin's still going to look really dark because everything else around her is lighter. But you can at least see her features. So let us bring up her skin tone then. And let's, do I want to use a ruddy leather or do I just want to use... Why don't I just show you guys how to use this straight up? And what I will use for, if I want to shade, and yes, this is really dark, but you can still get darker with it. But if I want to shade this and still retain that suggestion of blue, I will shade it with blue liner. My bottle blue liner is so old that it's like faded out completely, but you can see the 9066 there. I should just marker it, do a Sharpie. So yeah, if we get a little bit darker, I almost always shade this if I'm looking for an unnatural or magical effect. Even if I'm looking for a natural effect, but I'm looking for a really blue-black skin tone, I'll shade with blue liner on this. So in that case, if I'm going to go with my blue liner, it's about 5:1. This skin tone is so dark you don't even have to worry about true blending. Yeah, rust oxide and the earthen are, exactly. Yes, terracotta. They're great. They're perfect for terracotta. Absolutely. Yeah, Georgia clay. Yep. A lot of southern clays are right. The clay in Texas tends to be a little bit more yellow, at least North Texas where I was. Well, get him now. Nomad Zeke. Hi. Oh, yeah. Well, good luck on that, Nomad Zeke. I've been in that boat. It is not a happy boat, but hopefully in the end it leaves you healthier. Ebony flesh, very different from Dark Shadow XO. Essentially, Dark Shadow is a much more neutral brown. Ebony flesh is very rich. It's really, really rich. It's like the darkest of dark chocolates, and it's got a lot of blue in it. Dark Shadow does not have blue in it at all. It even goes a little bit muted because it's got a bit of ochre in it. I would say that Ebony Flesh is darker and richer, and it goes toward the blue spectrum. It's much colder. You could use Dark Shadow probably for like a first highlight on this, although I don't know that they're different enough for it to make much of a difference. So if I'm going to do blue liner for shading, I'm actually going to put that blue liner so you can see that it is darker under her cheekbone there. But these colors are so close together because they're both so dark that you really don't have to worry about blending very much. Like, I'm pretty much just going to block this in. And if I have to blend, I'll just do a little bit of wet blending. I see I missed an area under her chin anyway. So what I'll do with this is I'm going to do underneath her jaw, so the underside of her jaw is going to be darker. And this is going to give a really subtle shadow because these colors are very close together because they're both so dark, but still will give a slight shadow. So it still makes a difference. And since we're using a color that's different also, we're using the blue, a straight up blue instead of just the skin tone having a lot of blue in it. It kind of accentuates that. So if you want that true, really, really dark skin, I would suggest you shade with blue liner. See, that's dried now. The blue liner's on the cheekbone, but you really can't see. Like, you can kind of see the demarcation. Let's see here. This cheekbone isn't as blocked in. I can take a little bit of my Ebony Flesh and just kind of wet blend that blue liner into there. Don't even really need to be fancy about it because they're both so dark. You just want to blend a little bit of that edge. to bring it in. And I'm going to block in her eyes with the same color. Hello, Dungeon Journeyman. You're new. I haven't seen you before. There's enough people who watch Dark Shadows to tell you. Alright, so let's block in. So just like I do with any face, I'm going to take my darkest color, which right now is blue liner because it's near to black. Nearer to black than the ebony flesh is. And I'm going to block in the eye. You can see there how it is darker. Just a little bit darker than the surrounding area. So I still want that ability to set the eye off from the rest of the face. These are nice big eyes. I'm going to have fun putting colors in these. These are big enough to do colored irises in, which is going to be fun because we can do cat's eyes. Although technically big cat's eyes have the round pupils instead of the cat's eye, domestic cat's eyes. And I'm also going to take this blue liner and I'm going to paint her upper lip and line the mouth. Such an important step for expression, but so many new painters don't do it. So making the upper lip darker than your skin tone, and redder usually, but since I'm working with such a very, very dark skin tone, it wouldn't necessarily be redder. And putting a little bit of that line. Now the mouth, see, even now, the mouth stands out better, right? So that's what we're doing, is we're bringing in some shading. I'm going to actually do the underside of her nose also. She's got a delicate little snout. So a shadow under the nose, see how that brings that out? So even though these colors are so very close, it does make a difference. Make sure I've got that nice and blocked in. Got kind of that shadow here. And bring that shadow back over here. Mostly back against the hair. Also putting that dark, very dark color right up against the hair will help the hair stand out even more. Put a line there. Shadow back here. Go up to the top. That's about where I'll go at this time, I think. We could also add some shading into areas where you can see here there would be a shadow, like under the muscle of her shoulder here. There's definitely an indent there, so that would get a little bit more shadow. Back of her arm, where her triceps would be. The bicep line here. It's a little bit of shadow here. You could probably shade a lot of the inside of the arm here. It's already dark, but we could take it even darker and make it a real disappearing shadow at that point. Anywhere you put dark, when we start to highlight this skin, it's going to make all of the details stand out a bit more. So on this side, once again, if you look at this in the light that you can see on camera, you've got a shadow definitely coming in right here, right? And then you've got a little bit of a shadow around her bicep and a little bit where the arm here goes. See this little bit of shadow up at the top because you've got a highlight right here. So you want to touch all those areas. And again, I'm not really using a blending stroke because these colors are so close together. And the rule is the closer the colors are to each other, the thicker you can use them and still get, you know, a blended effect. Especially if you go back in with your base color and you just kind of feather over any harsh line that you might see. There. So that makes those details come out even more since we've now got a base coat and a shadow. And once again, I'm going to go in and block in this area really dark. Because as it's the back side of the arm, no one's going to really see it. Alright, I'm going to shade in real dark here, underneath the bracelet. There. Don't really need to line around the bracelet with the blue liner. You can if you want to. The skin is so dark compared to the probably NMM gold that we're going to do there that it doesn't really need it. There we go. That's nice. All right. Now we can go into highlighting. Gonna grab my ruddy skin. Gonna grab there. About 4 drops of the ruddy. Now, you can see how very different these are. So you've got 2 choices. You can try to mix them, which isn't bad, but like I said, can go a little green. You kind of have to watch it. So I'll start dark and kind of add in little bits. There we go, that's not bad. If it goes a little green on you, what you can do is add in just a tiny touch of ruddy leather. But this is actually looking pretty okay right now. The key is to predominantly keep it with a lot of the ebony flesh in it. And you can build kind of a midway between the two, or almost. You can see this is much darker than this, but it is a little closer. So it helps us to start with our layering. Whenever you have 2 colors that you're trying to use one as a highlight for the other, always do a mixture of the 2. It'll get you, it'll serve as a bridge. Especially if you're not that good at layering or you don't really understand paint consistency for layering yet. Alright, so we want to keep our skin pretty dark, so we're going to want to limit the amount of highlighting that we do. So I'll start out, I'm going to test this color, this intermediary color that I mixed. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it. Because this is so close to this, you don't need to thin it very much to get decent layering. Again, the closer together your colors are for layering, the thicker you can run without penalty. The farther apart your colors are, the thinner you're going to have to make that highlight color to make it blend nicely. Alright, let's see how this looks. I'm going to start with the upper part of her cheekbone. You can see that that's a very subtle, but it is a highlight. You can see the under rim of her eye now. I'm going to come up and get her brow. I don't mind starting really subtle. When you're dealing with a skin tone like this, where you are starting very dark and you need to go quite a bit lighter to get to your highlights, starting with a very subtle first highlight is good. Subtle means easier to blend. You can always bring it up more, but if you go up too strongly, you're going to see a lot of brush strokes. Her upper lip is going to have highlight. It's nice how Julie kind of made her face like a cat face. I may work with that. Like, she definitely has this little kind of like a rounded area here, so you could paint her more cat or less cat, depending on how you wanted to do things. Let's see. Yeah, now you can see her face a little bit better. So this side is a bit warmer, you see, and this side is still very cold. If you look closely, you should be able to see that. So that's how subtle this is. So I have thinned this. You can see that the highlight color has a fair bit of water in it. It's not very strong, and that's on purpose. Because those of you on my Patreon, if you saw the Painting the Blues thing I put out last month, I talked about how when you start with a very, very transparent color and you try to highlight over the top of it, you can run into trouble. Now, this ebony flesh isn't quite that problematic because it is so high coverage. But you can kind of still run into a little bit of that because it still uses more transparent pigments than some of the ochre color that's in this. So it's not as bad, but starting more subtle is good on this one. And when you're using a thin paint like this, this is actually not one layer of paint. This is like 2 layers of paint. Because when you put your first layer down, it's going to be real subtle. Then you can put another layer over the top, but shrink it just as if you were going up with a different color, a different highlight color. But because it's a little bit transparent, you can put a couple of layers up and build it up just gently. Instead of never think that layering is always using a different color, is I guess my point. Like, some people think of layering, they're like, okay, we go from that to that to that. But it doesn't have to be. It can be that to 2 layers of that to, maybe even 3 layers of this if I thin it a lot. So you can think of it that way. You don't have to, like, when I tend to paint white, it's a long and arduous process. Because I start with a medium light gray, and I just layer up white on top of that. Just pure white. Infinite layers of pure white. I only have one highlight color. I'm just putting on crap tons of layers of it. So don't always think that when you go up to your next layer, you have to change your color, especially if your first layer was so transparent that you can't see it very well. Then maybe you should put on another layer of your original color. This is always assuming you want smooth blending. If you are going for smooth blends, this is the way to do it. Not everybody would be. For instance, on other parts of this model, we're going to be painting fur texture, which is cool because it's also my subject. Fur texture on were creatures is going to be what I'm doing for the Patreon for the $2 one. That video I'll be working on today. Took a while for me to decide what I wanted to do. Went back and forth. But I figured that could be thematic. Alrighty, so I've got a little bit of a subtle highlight coming up on that side of her face. Kinda. Mostly I wanted something between these two. In the past in Ara, I've just worked up with this, but you can get a little bit green sometimes, so I'm being cautious. I decided to make an intermediary stage. Yes, this does help make sure that you don't get chalkiness, although like I said, because this isn't a true transparent, because it's so opaque, you aren't as high risk doing it as you are with like purples, greens, purples, really dark transparent greens, and blues. So it's not really going to go chalky. I just don't want green. And making a transition color when my colors are so different is a good idea. So let's just go up. Let's just straight up go up from here. I'm going to put a lot more water in this though. I do tend to like to do fewer transition colors and more layers. That is just kind of my... I'd use a transparent sword, Viva Aqua. Painting anything as transparent is it's just not gonna happen unless it's up against something. If you have a blade that's held up against a cape with a pattern under it, you could paint that sword to look transparent because you could paint the cape pattern underneath it. So you could do it that way. But if somebody's holding out a sword in front of them, you can make it look crystal, I guess. You could paint it like a gemstone. That would be how you would make it look transparent. But it wouldn't really look transparent because you can't see anything through it. And what you would see through it would shift depending on how you move the model. So you can't really do a transparent sword, in my opinion, unless it's held up against something else that you could then paint the sword to look like that something else is showing through it. You'd still probably paint it like a gemstone. You just wouldn't do color. My Patreon is patreon.com/paintingbig. Rella, thanks for asking. I love my Patreon. I do this work for Reaper, but the Patreon is actually my main source of income. So I love it dearly. I really enjoy doing it. I love to do the videos and the PDFs. And we're starting a new paint along too for the tier 4 this month, so that's exciting too. So all right, I'm gonna go over. You can see how much lighter that is. Look at that nose. That's going up to this, and I thinned this a lot. See how thin that is? You can still see it. It's pretty good layering consistency, actually. It's maybe a little strong, but this is such a transparent paint. I don't want to go too weak with it, or it's going to take me forever to layer up. Thank you for linking to the Patreon, guys. If the plastic started transparent, then it's easy. Then it's just you highlight the edges, Vimanaqua. I wouldn't do anything else. I might put a little bit of colored shading, depending on what magic your sword has. Like if you have a transparent sword that does life magic, then I would mostly just edge the sword with like pure white. But I would also maybe take some like greens and golds and put it like right down. Where do I have a sword? Yeah. So so if this guy was being painted with a transparent sword and this blade was actually transparent plastic, I would still do the white line down around the edges of the blade and down the middle here and on the edge spot down here. But I would probably leave the rest of it transparent, except down here. I would maybe do some green and then up to some gold, just a little bit, and then leave this part mostly transparent. If it was a fire person, I'd do reds and maybe a bit of violet. If it was a water person, I'd do blues. You get the idea? So whatever your character is, whatever energy this magic transparent sword would be, I might suggest a little bit of the color down near the hilt, but I'd leave the majority of it transparent and just do the white edging. That's how I would do it. It's actually easier than you think, because you aren't doing much. It's not much work when the part is already transparent. Yes, happy Thanksgiving to Canada. I am looking forward to Thanksgiving here. I think I told David I wanted to make a turkey, but turkeys are so huge. But I do really want to make a turkey. We'll just have leftovers for forever. We'll just have to find a small turkey, which can be harder. Although I think if you ask nicely at Sprouts and Whole Foods, they do have a limited number of small turkeys. I will have to venture out and ask. So see how, using that thin paint, I'm just slowly working up this skin tone. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go off diet. I'm not totally off diet. I'll use a gluten-free stuffing, but I might go off diet and have real stuffing for Thanksgiving. I do love stuffing. And because I'm using this so thin, I'm just building up layers of it. Just a real subtle. But, I mean, this is a fairly small area, so it's not like it's going to take me forever to do it. And it's the face, so it's so important. Yeah, turkey soup is so good. And actually, now I have, before I was using a crock pot, but now I have the pressure cooker. I have the Instant Pot. So I can make some serious turkey bone broth. That's going to be super tasty. Gonna get that upper lip. Gonna go over to the other side of the face. Make sure I pay attention to that. So what we want is just subtle highlights to start bringing up those subtle highlights. We still want the face to look really dark. Stuffing is the best. Yeah, I was thinking like something like 10 to 12 pounds red links. Yeah, that's about what I was thinking. I mean, I don't otherwise ever have a reason to make turkey, right? So, unless I really want to, but with just us two and the Kiri dog, it's, you know, I would rather just roast a 6-pound chicken or a duck because I love duck. And so does Kiri. But apparently Kiri's new love is pork belly. We made a Chinese pork belly, Chinese flavored pork belly, 5-spice and sriracha and stuff. And Kiri went absolutely crazy for it. Like, I've never seen this dog this insane. Except for maybe the first time I ever made real duck. But yeah, so apparently pork belly is where it's at for Kiri. Totally not very healthy for her, so she's not going to ever get a lot. Yeah, I know. I like when I turn her, yeah, I can see it right there. When I turn her, I was seeing it. I just wasn't like obsessing about it. I can obsess about it though if it's driving you nuts. Here, let me be obsessive for just a second. It's just a little bit of a recessed area. So you just did it. Cold smoker, cool. Yeah, I bet the cats love duck. I do not have a kitty anymore, but Kiri's my stand-in kitty. She loves duck too. Uh-oh, I have a hair. An errant hair. You guys see my errant hair? Alright, well, while we can see it very nicely, You take our knife. This is how you deal with an errant hair. It's so nicely split out from the rest of the brush. You just want to follow it all the way down very slowly so you can pick it out from its brethren without damaging anybody else. And you nick it off on the bottom of the ferrule. And then you have a good brush again. You never want to try to pull out a hair. You always want to do that. When it sticks out, that's when you take your knife and you grab it and gently pull it, and then you wick it off right at the bottom of that metal ferrule. And what that does is it removes your errant hair without damaging the glue and the set of the rest of the bristles. So everything stays great, and you can still remove your errant hair. Yeah, I did Thanksgiving with friends last year, or the year before last, Malandar. I invited a friend over for Thanksgiving because I was post-divorce and didn't really have family in the area. I think it's just going to be David and I this year. His family are up north, and in the winter mine are down in Arizona, so. Although actually we did have, I just had recalled that we did have a Thanksgiving invite possibly down to Arizona. Although I haven't heard anything about it, and that probably means a no-go, but I should probably touch base with my brother. All right, so we're bringing out the face more and more. Oh, I don't know. Sometimes, like, you know, we can... I think Valandar likes to pun from time to time, and you could totally do Gasp the Horror after some of those. Alright, so here's where I say you could paint her more like a cat face. Julie has it almost where she's got kind of a line here where you could do a bit of a muzzle on her if you wanted to. Since we're making her kind of a dark, more natural skin tone, I'm not emphasizing that, although I may play to it just a little bit with my highlights, like so. But you can really see her face starting to come up now. Yeah, if we went, I'd drive Red Lynx, because I'd have to bring Kiri. Kiri's way too old to kennel. That's the thing that limits our travel these days, and we'll limit it until Kiri is gone. It's just that Kira's going to be 13 in January. She's just way too old to go to a kennel. She'd get so upset. And you just don't want, stress when they're at this age. So anywhere I go for a trip, I have to be able to bring a Kiri. So I would drive to Arizona. It's not that bad. It's, 2 days? I'd lose some time on the Patreon work, but it would be worth it to see my family, because that was one of the things when I went freelance. I was super happy because I could, see my family more, because I'm flexible, right? I can work on the road, especially with PDFs. And then, of course, COVID hit, and so I haven't been able to see my family at all, and it really sucks. Just the silliness of my timing. Sweet potato casserole actually made me, want to retch when I was a kid. And kind of still does. I can't do sweet potatoes if they're done in a sweet casserole. I love spicy sweet potato fries, though. When they're done in a savory manner, then I love sweet potatoes. But I can't, man. They had to put the dish of sweet potatoes, on the other end of the Thanksgiving table for me every year. Because I would honestly just smell them in that brown sugar and whatever else was in them, and I would just really just feel sick. And I have a sweet tooth, so I don't know what it is, but so now we see the faces coming to life, right? We're just being careful because we don't want to go, and at this point actually I'm going to thin my base color a lot, guys, because now I can use it for layering and blending. So when I see a spot where I've got a little bit too much, if you're doing cap markings on her face, then you want this kind of sharp delineation that you can see here, but I'm not really, so I want to kind of minimize that. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to blend out a little bit with that gold color. And then I'm going to take my skin base coat, my ebony flesh, and interrupt that sharp line that I've painted going back the other way. And I'm going to work back and forth, kind of. Maybe even do a little bit of wet blending. You can do wet blending with thin paint. You're just using a lot less of it. But yeah, Julie has very cleverly sculpted this, guys, where You can paint it like a human face, especially if you're painting it. I think it helps if you're painting it dark skinned. But it definitely has little areas where you could put cat markings on the face, like accentuating kind of a muzzle shape around the mouth. And of course, the eyes are very large and cat-like. So she does look like a kitty cat. Julie did a really good job with. Julie does a great job with animals, and she also does a great job with kind of like halfway animals, like werewolves and things, where it's a blend of features. I think this is a really awesome like cat girl face. Like it's really kind of halfway between. It's a great hybrid face. I thought this model was the best Sphinx sculpt I'd ever seen when I first saw it. I still think it is. Yeah, the contrast makes it look more feline, but I mean, it's not really a contrast though. Like if you get close, I am blending. And I do want this to stay really dark, right? So I'm bringing up my jawline a bit. You don't want to bring out the jawline with the same level of highlight as the rest of the face, but you do want to highlight down here. In a lot of faces, not everybody, but in a lot of faces, the mandible does stick out a bit because you usually have that hollow in the cheek, right? Under the cheekbone, you got a hollow, and then you get the jaw kind of points out again, and it almost always catches the light. And so you don't get like a strong highlight, but you want a little bit of a highlight along the line of that jaw, especially next to this dark shadow under here. It helps to define the face. It's important for the profile. So I do definitely do that. Here it looks like a more natural dark-skinned face, right? Because I've got a little, I got a little bit too much of a demarcation here. But the more I layer my ruddy skin tone in, the better it'll look. And she still looks really dark, which is what we want. We want her features to stand out, but she still looks really dark. So I'm going to put one more layer of this ruddy flesh on, and then I'm going to highlight up, and I'm likely going to highlight up with yellow. Hey there, Zambies. How's it going? Oh, yeah, Rella, that just makes my stomach not want it. But, oh, Val, if you like sweet potato fries with sweet sea salt, try it with some pepper, like chipotle, pepper and ancho, some chili pepper, ground chili peppers. Try it with that. Spicy sweet potato fries. When I first read about them, I didn't believe it, and then I tried them, and now they're freaking addictive. Like, we haven't been making them for the last month or two because of my keto choice, but we may need to slack a little over the holidays and make them again. So another layer right up under the eye. Yeah, Cajun sweet potato fries. Yeah, exactly. It is kinda. Although Cajun cooking tends to have a fair amount of like cumin and stuff, and we don't put cumin in them. I do a bit of cayenne. I do some ancho, and I do some chipotle. I have specific chili peppers because I learned in Texas that sometimes you don't want just the generic chili, Mexican chili powder. Like sometimes you want just a little bit of roasted pepper, and then you use ancho. And sometimes you want a bit of heat and smokiness, and that's when you use chipotle. And then cayenne, if you just want heat with no smokiness or flavor profile, it's very useful for that. I use that a lot in seafood dishes. All right, so essentially using the same color but building up a brighter highlight with this ruddy flesh. So I've got more of a highlight here under this eye, you can see it, than I do under that eye. Oh, that just sounds gross to me. Twisted Oma caramel sauce to dip your sweet potato fries in. That's a little bit too much. Ranch dressing I might be able to do. Yes, exactly. Yes, Rella, you got it. You nailed it. That right there. The garlic is optional, I find. But I do use paprika. Often I use smoked paprika. Oregano less so, because the oregano tends to drop off or burn. Depends on how you're going to cook them. And usually I oven them on parchment paper. So that's a problem with oregano, is that you may get a scorched oregano instead. You kind of have to watch it with those leafy herbs. But yeah, smoked paprika. No, I'm not going to give her a pink nose. It wouldn't be in character, Grim. If I was doing her as a cat person, then it kind of would, but her nose is human enough that it wouldn't look right. If she had more of a cat muzzle, we could totally give her a pink nose. Although, I don't know, I'd have to look up pictures of black lions and see if they have pink noses. Usually you only see pink if if the skin is pink, and a lot of black animals don't have pink skin. Although my cat did. He was a black cat, and he actually did have light-colored skin, which looked really odd in places. He was half Siamese. He was Mama San's kid, so he had some weird genetics going on anyway. Alright, so the face is about where I want it. I think I need to bring in more of a highlight. Often with human faces, remember the shape of the skull, right? It's usually the eyes, and then you got the front of the face comes down, and when you're drawing a stylized skull, that's how you're going to highlight this face. So here's my eye holes and my cheekbone, but then I also need to bring this highlight straight down from the eye, alongside the nose down to the upper mouth. And that's just because the front of the face is flatter and catches the light like a cylinder. So that's what you're doing there. I knew it was a thing, but I didn't understand why that element of facial highlighting is a thing until I started thinking about highlighting the shape, which is why a lot of drawing guides will tell you to break things down into shapes, basic shapes, and not think about like drawing it without outlining your basic shapes, because then you'll understand your highlighting and shading better. So you've got that, the front of the face more highlighted. I thought there were lions that had a more of a melanistic dark coat, and that's what they call black lions. Maybe I was wrong that way. I'd have to look it up. I thought it was a thing, though. Maybe not. Maybe what I'm thinking of as black lions just has more black, more melanistic pigment in the coat. I've definitely seen lions who are darker. Too much for me, Twisted Oma. Sweet potatoes in concert with any kind of sweet thing really just make my stomach turn. Like, it's just a weird thing. I have no idea why. I doubt it, Scrying Eye. I mean, I don't know. I have painted in really arid climates. High desert, Santa Fe. I often paint in Santa Fe. What I find is that I just have to thin my paint a little extra, and it takes me a little longer to layer up because my paint is more transparent. But I honestly don't have trouble utilizing any of my techniques in an arid climate at all. And here in the South Bay, winter is actually a little wet, like it rains. So yeah, who knows? But even when I've painted in Santa Fe, yes, it's a little bit, the paint dries a bit faster, so I make it a little thinner, and then I tend to build it up a little more gradually. And that's how I adjust. That's why when people ask me, when they're all like, what should I do? I'm in a really arid climate. I can't use this. I'm like, yeah, you can, but you're going to have to change how you use it. Like, you may have to alter the way you use a tool, but you can still use the tool. So I find that I have no problem with a well palette in an arid climate. You just have to thin your paint a bit more. And you may want to use a bigger brush and do what I do, which is when you first get the water, when you first rinse your brush, don't tap it on a towel. Just squeeze the water out just like that with your fingertips. That way you've still got a load of water in this brush, but it's not enough to make puddles or anything. It's just moisture. Then when you load up your brush, that moisture helps your paint stay wet that little bit longer. And that's how you deal with arid. Like, that's how you deal with an arid climate. Like, you just have to think about, how am I going to change this up so that I can essentially make my paint stay wet a little longer. So try a larger brush, still with a good tip. Don't get all the water out of it. You're still going to load it and unload it normally. It's probably going to inherently thin your paint a little bit more when you load and unload. But like I said, it might take you a little longer, maybe an extra layer of paint, but it's going to work just fine. Going to get that muscle. Yeah. Oh, Voltron. Oh, see you later. Whoever said see you later. Oh, Rella. Okay. Have fun. Yeah, I don't know if we'll turn the heat on that much. But even so, like, you know, I painted in Wisconsin in the winter and the heat's on and sucking, you know, and that's really low humidity once you get that deep freeze. And I find that it's not, I find a lot of people reach for that as an excuse, but I think it's just a matter of adapting. Don't see it as a like, oh no, you know, see it, oh, this is happening. Well, I just have to adapt a little bit. It's all the way you think about it. And you may get a little, like, I see that puddle I got, you may get a little more puddling when you leave that amount of fluid in your brush. And that's why I said unloading becomes more critical then. I should talk about that in my paint unloading, my brush loading and unloading video. The more I think about it, the more I think that's gonna, I really want to do the fur one though. Wow. I'm just like, this is when my Patreon gets a little bit later in the month. Like, normally I'd have my first video out by the 7th or 8th. But I've been sitting here going, oh, but I want to do this one. Oh, but I want to do that one. I need to just make a freaking decision. So now, here I am highlighting the muscles here on her arms. So I'm bringing it all in so it looks like all one thing. I'm doing it before I go up another layer of highlight. I'm to the point where, okay, I can see her features. I'm going to put another layer of highlight up, but first I want to get the rest of this stuff taken care of. So we'll get that in here. I find that I actually have more trouble with a wet palette in the arid environment. But yeah, if you're having trouble with your paint drying in the palette, although honestly, like I said, big paint puddles. You don't want a paint puddle that's like this, where you can see a ton of the area of this palette. You want just a little bit. You want a very full well. The more full your well is, the longer it's going to stay wet. It doesn't matter how dry it is. I just get a little more leeway because maybe our humidity is like, what, 40% right now? 30%? I don't know. Our humidity is very comfortable right now in South Bay. Whatever the level is. Yeah, probably Val. I mean, if you're just if you're just learning, yeah. As you get more experimental, as you get, you know, to the point where you get more comfortable with mixing color, you may pull, you know, what a lot of us do, or Michael Proctor is pretty famous for it, and choose to use a totally different color in your shadows. I often will not utilize just that shadow color in my shadows. Like here, this is a prime example. I usually go cool with my shadows, and so I went bluer. You know, I went with a blue liner for these shadows. I didn't just use ebony skin or ebony flesh as my shadow. So I don't reach for the easy answers, but when you're learning, and you are, then yes, I would say you could go that way. Now, keep in mind, if you do that, if you are just working with, say, purple for a skin tone, and you mix 2 purples for your midtone, and, you know, you go with that, you know, and then one is the shadow and one is the highlight, it's going to look very flat. It's just that color. It has nothing else in it. You'll find that things become more interesting when you introduce other colors, but again, that takes some experience to know which colors to introduce. For example, your skin would become much more interesting if instead of just amethyst, you also went up an additional level by mixing in, say, rosy skin. Then you're not just purple, 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 and it's all the same purples. You're actually adding in a different thing, a skin tone, that can warm up your highlights and make things more interesting. Hey, Socrates. Socrates is subbed to us. That's awesome. 5 months. Awesome. Almost a half a year. All right, Valandar. Shadow Raven, I think I'm happy with you existing. You're one of my, like, you know, like, passionate fan people, and I really appreciate that. I would miss you if you didn't exist. Let's see. Oh, the Tamaya. Yeah. Yes, that's the Tamaya Fine Surface Primer, or Tamiya, depending. I've heard it said both ways. Grim, that is the only primer I have that has never had an atmospheric issue for me. Ever. It's expensive, and it's in smaller cans, but, you know, if you're not priming the legions of hell, you're probably going to be just fine and get a decent mileage out of it. And if you live in a problematic environment where there is a lot of humidity, then I think it's worth it. I still use it. I kind of swap these days. I really like that Games Workshop white if I'm doing Zenith, so I tend to use that if I'm doing Zenith. But if I'm doing a straight up Prime, I use the Tamiya. I did not go to my intermediary color. I'm seeing a really stark band here, so I'm going to glaze a little bit of my halfway color across that to minimize it. Specifically, Tamiya Fine Surface, and they make a white and a light gray chibi. I really like the light gray a lot. It's my go-to these days. If I'm just priming a model light. So I'm just messing around here to try to blend this in a little bit better. This shoulder is a little kind of losing its roundness. Hey Rex, how's it going? You like using the white ink, Bryce? Yeah, I'm one of those people who doesn't have an airbrush setup, so I tend to just reach for primer. And actually, I've been very impressed with Games Workshop white for Zenith. Like, it does not speckle nearly as much as other primers. I used it on this girl, and it impressed me that it was so unspeckly. You can see how fine I got on it. It still has a little bit of a speckle mist effect, but very, very fine. So actually, I'm really, really happy with the Games Workshop white on that over the black primer right now. But yeah, I mean, if I have an airbrush setup, I might try the white ink thing. I think I actually own some. I've heard good things about it. I mean, don't do, Val, if you're going, what did you say? Were you doing Imperial and Amethyst? Remember, Val, that on skin, you don't want to go that dark unless it's a dark skin tone. You want your skin, if you're looking for a fair-skinned purple, you know, you got to figure out what your skin color is, right? Like your base color. But if your base is like medium to light, I wouldn't go that dark with skin. You don't want, especially if it's a female, you do not want to go with heavy contrasting shadows on most female models. With this one, it's still not super high contrast. I'm just bringing it up like naturally. I am going to pop the highlights on her face a bit, but then I might do a glaze with the whole thing. We'll see. But I would be more likely, when you're lazy, yeah, I'm lazy most of the time. But don't just use pink, Val. Use a skin tone. Use a pinkish skin tone. That's why I said rosy skin. And you could go up just with pink, but then it depends on how natural or unnatural you want to be. If you at all want to go semi-natural, go with a skin tone. If you want a completely unnatural skin tone, you could try like breast cancer awareness pink mixed with the amethyst. All right, I think I've got her face kind of where I need it. I want this muscle arrangement needs to be done. And then we'll have her skin in a very nice place, actually. Good, Coves. Yay, base coating. Hey, base coating is the most boring time of the model, so if you got base coating, if my show helped you get base coating, oh wow, we're after 11. Shoot, I need to like wrap this up. We didn't even have a Kier emergency. Thanks, Kier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to do a quick highlight then with this Ruddy Flesh on my dark skin over here. Just to get it kind of where the rest of it is. But yeah, I mean, honestly, Val, I just want to say, you're at the new time where you really should keep it simple. So you don't have to try that skin tone trick. If you do your purples and they look good, then maybe try a little bit of one extra really small highlight, just mixing in some skin or pink with your amethyst purple. But I mean, really what you should be concentrating on is less on the colors and more on getting your technique down at this time. Like getting your brush work, getting comfortable with the brush. figuring out where your highlights and shadows go and you know, getting good at placing them. That's what you should work on. Don't throw too many. It's like when you're testing a theory. If you throw too many variables into it, you never know what's working and what isn't because you changed too many things. So getting yourself in a zone where it's like, I am very confident with my highlight placement is far more useful than playing with colors right now, probably. Yeah, Kiri has been a super good girl. She does have that look on her face that says, I drank a lot of water earlier, Mommy, and I really need to go out soon. I think that's, yeah, I mean, my skin tone isn't quite high enough, but we'll go back in tomorrow and we'll do our final highlight on the skin, and then we'll do some blending into fur on the hands, and that'll help us set up our colors for the rest of the fur. And we'll see what we're going to do. And I've got little threads of plastic still, so I still need to clean up. Those claws are the hands and the claws are the most problematic. I'm trouble thinking out on her right arm where part of her dress kind of hangs off her wrist. Oh, you're Sarah the Cirrus. I'm pretty sure that's a bracelet, Coos. Like, I don't remember the model, like, perfectly, but often there is a bracelet there. If it's hanging off her wrist, I might go with bracelet. There's probably a bracelet and then the cloth hangs off. That makes more sense from a design element. Yeah, I would say Inara's right. Look at the metal version in the store. And see the painted version if there's one. Painted versions aren't always the answer because often people might have the same trouble that you are. So let me get her up here and get in focus. And get my hand out of there. And so that's where we are, guys. So as you can see, I did warm it up a lot, but I've still got a lot of very cool shadows down here. A little bit of the blue is still here and there, especially under the neck right now because I haven't brought the neck highlights up right here. But her skin is looking very cool. I like it so far. So next time, tomorrow, we'll probably pop one final level of highlighting on her to just get like her very highest highlights up. We'll pay more attention to the area around her eyes to see maybe if we want to put some markings there or some eyeshadow, we'll fill in her eyes. We'll keep tuning this whole area. We want to also make her mouth, her lips a little bit red, I think, down here. So yeah, and we'll just keep working this, and we'll work out to the paws if we have time. And so we're just pretty much painting, and we need to decide about a hair color too. We need to decide if we're going to go golden like the cat fur, or if we're going to go for a separate color up here, because technically her hair is very human-like. We could go with a different color. But yeah. Ultramarine probably. Try what I did, Koofs. Put a little bit of cloudy gray in it. Remember what I did with the koala? If you have a color that you feel is just a little bit too saturated, but you still want to use roughly that color, pick a gray that's really like in the same kind of lightness and darkness spectrum as it, and add just a drop of gray to it. And that works really well with blues. Just a touch of gray to take down that saturation, but it's still mostly the color you wanted. That blue on that koala looked really vibrant, even though I'd added a ton of cloudy gray to it. Yes, and then if you want it to come up to super saturated, you can always glaze with it or with its shadow at the end. Inara is right on as usual. Yes, yeah, the big eyes really do make her look feline. And when we painted them in, we can also concentrate on making them look look like they're slanted a little bit more. And I can also outline them with black, and we can do a little like Eye of Horus, curl coming off of one side, to make her even more Egyptian. So we'll do all that. We'll play with that tomorrow. All right, guys. Justin, who is out there for us to raid?
That's a great question. Let's see.
I wanted to go a little longer today anyway, since we lost time on Friday, so I like to get my full 7.5 hours in. Yeah, she'll probably progress a fair amount in our... I mean, we'll have refined things, tightened things, made a couple decisions, maybe blocked in some hair or whatever. We'll figure it out.
We're going to be raiding Miniatures Den.
Miniatures Den, let's go see Luca. All right, guys, have a fun day, and I will see you tomorrow. I hope you all have a lovely afternoon, all right? See you later.
Thank you guys very much. Tune in this afternoon for Miniature Monday. And also a quick update. Tomorrow we will not have a crow's nest. Proctor has some work stuff going on. So we will not have a crow's nest tomorrow. But thank you guys very much. Keep being awesome. And I will see you guys this afternoon.